Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's session, Dismantling the Dysfunction, Reinforcing Trust, Confidence, and Accuracy in Records Management. In today's session, we'll be discussing solutions designed to help manage physical records that also make those records accessible digitally. A solution that helps to combine physical tracking and digital integration so that you can easily locate documents while maintaining the integrity of the original asset. Before we get started, I wanted to share with you a couple of tips on how to best use this platform. So first, the on-demand or the On24 webinar platform allows you to adjust all of the windows within your screen. So feel free to adjust any of the video windows, the slide windows, or anything else that helps you follow along as we present. Next, we'll be answering questions at the end of this presentation, but please feel free to submit your questions throughout by using the Q&A window, and we'll respond to them at the end of the session. Additionally, we do have Laserfish and Gimel teams on hand, keeping track of all the questions as they come in. So if you have any immediate support questions regarding the On24 platform, feel free to use that Q&A window, and someone from our teams will be happy to assist. And as you may have already noticed, there is a window with downloadable resources. Feel free to download those for insights and access after the webinar. And then the session is being recorded and it is accessible on demand. So if you'd like to view this again or share with your colleagues, you can use the same link that you used to access this session today. You can use that same link to access on demand. And with that, we'll go ahead and get started with introductions. So I'll go ahead and kick us off. My name is Noelle Loughran, and I'm the Strategic Solutions Manager here at Laserfish, and I cover public sector.
And I am Kurt Teese, Vice President of Gimel Records, and here with me is my colleague, Tim Butler.
Hey everybody, Tim Butler, Solution Engineer. I'll be walking you through a demo a little bit later.
All right, and so for today's agenda, Kurt and I will do a little overview on Laserfish and Gimel, and then I'll give a little overview on digital resilience, the benefits of a records management solution, and then we'll have Kurt and Tim explain the case for a physical and electronic management system. Tim will give a demo, we'll do the Q&A, and then we'll wrap it up. So with that, we thought we'd get started with a little bit about Laserfish. So a strong, robust, active community, and we provide ongoing user training and education so we can continue to evolve and help our users innovate and grow with our system. We are a trusted partner with organizations around the world. It is not just public sector, it is healthcare, it is finance, you name it, we're there. We also have an active community of leaders and evangelists that help their peers grow and expand their knowledge of Laserfish. We also have focused resources for product advancement and market development. And so Laserfish prides itself in working very closely with our customers to provide solutions that actually solve real world challenges. And with that, Kurt.
Thank you. You can see that I'm using the ability to advance the slides to just mix up.
Me on my toes. I love it.
What's the background? So. Thanks, Noel. So Gimel is a information lifecycle company. So we manage both physical and electronic records by applying governance to those systems. So in relation to Laserfish, we are not a repository. We're not a content management system. We are just applying governance to those systems. For physical records that we're focused on here today, we provide a full service physical records management solution, which Tim is going to walk us through. So as we go through, we will talk a little bit about the difference between physical and electronic records, how they're managed in conjunction with one another. And our focus, again, is on the physical records management. Back to you, Noelle.
Thank you. All right, and so I think at this point, this is a great time to get started with a polling question. So the window on your screen with the poll question is interactive, so you can go ahead and select any one of those A, B, or C items. But we're wondering what the level of difficulty is in your organization managing your digital and your physical records. So we'll give everyone a few moments to respond to that. You can say difficult, not difficult, somewhat difficult. So we'll give everyone a couple of minutes to do that. All right, it looks like we're getting a lot of responses, so thank you. I will go ahead and advance. So thank you for that. We're going to go ahead and look at the results. And so, okay, it's pretty evenly split between very and somewhat difficult. So we're all in good company here today. Really excited to have all of you join us because this is what we're here for, to talk about how you can better manage those assets. So with that, I thought it would be pretty smart to just kind of do an overview on digital resilience. While it is not a new concept, I do feel it is relevant to mention here in today's session, as proper and effective records management is vital for any organization. Within the context that we're discussing here today, it's really about enabling the physical asset to be connected to the digital, so that 1, you know that you have the record, 2, you can locate the physical record, and 3, you can enable proper retention schedules so you're not at risk of a liability and you're not keeping things longer than you have to, which helps you save time and money. The benefit to using an integrated solution like the one Gimel offers for Laserfiche is that you have the ability to support all 4 aspects of building a resilient organization. You have an improved customer service experience by being better equipped to respond to requests through instant access to information. You can support a digital workplace by enabling access to your physical records digitally, giving staff the ability to access that from anywhere, creating a more connected enterprise through system integrations, and finally, by leveraging what Laserfiche, one of the things that Laserfiche does best, and it's our pre-built templates and solutions and our low-code automation tools. So you can enable your organization to stay flexible and empower employees to participate in innovation across all levels of your enterprise. And so what is an integrated records management system? So I'm actually going to let Kurt handle that part, but I thought I'd cover quickly what it looks like without an integrated management system, integrated records management system. And so without a system, without that integrated system, there's really no standard or no system that you're working with. There's no index for your records. You can have duplicate records across departments or even divisions. Your key paper documents have no backup, and those can be quite fragile. So having that backup is useful. And then having to manually manage the regulations from multiple government agencies, whether it's federal, state, or local. So you have a large amount of paper and electronic documents spread across the organization and your business units, and it's stored in filing cabinets, personal folders, offsite storage, electronic systems, Outlook, you name it. And so then you're mixing different document types with different retentions into one electronic file that's helpful. Individual employees have in-depth knowledge about specific records in their specialization, and they know who personally has those documents, but that information lives within that person. And so once you have an integrated system, have more awareness, and you can have access and awareness across the organization. And with that, Kurt, I'll let you take it away.
Terrific. Thanks, Noelle. So let me first state why we are doing this presentation with Laserfiche. What we find in the marketplace is that our customers are using both of our solutions. So we have the electronic documents and records being managed in Laserfiche, and we have the physical records being managed in Gimel Physical. And we are combining the ability to manage records regardless of the format while we're using both systems to do their particular jobs. So let me talk a little bit about what we see in the market and what we're hearing from customers like yourselves. So I have a friend who sells ice cream. Actually, not ice cream. He sells the cups and the spoons and everything for it. And he goes all over the world. He was just in Milan. And he can tell everything about who eats ice cream. I live in New England. consumes more ice cream than California, where I used to live. And he can tell me how many ice cream places there are in Boston, where I live. In the same way, we deal with customers like yourselves, and we track what is happening in the marketplace. And over time, we are seeing what is happening to physical and electronic records. And certainly there is a migration to digital records, digital first processes. And at the same time, there are physical records that are aging out their life cycle or need to be retained in a physical format. So on the left, you can see a typical warehouse. So I imagine for a lot of the folks on this call, this is something familiar with you. On the right side, the life cycle of creation of records, organization, safekeeping, classification, and final disposition is very familiar. What we're seeing in the marketplace is the creation of physical files continues to be reduced. So tools like Laserfiche are managing day forward documents, keeping them electronic, creating workflow and processes for digital records. So the focus of our business increasingly is on the later stage of that life cycle. So as the wheel of the life cycle keeps spinning, you have more and more records accumulating in centralized physical storage. So that is what we manage, that entire life cycle and that entire process, particularly the end of that life cycle and the retention and governance of that information. So paper files continue to exist. And while we have been all speaking about the paperless office for many years, we're not trying to advocate that paper is the right way to go, that there should be more paper. We're trying to advocate for the management of all of your records, regardless of their format. So the hybrid environment. And the physical records, as I'm sure most of you can attest, still exist. They're still part of the equation, but the shift in where they are stored, how they are created, and how they're managed continues to evolve. So with this hybrid approach, as I mentioned, more and more records are born digital and remain digital. So the creation of the typical physical file folder, that absolutely is being reduced. And the movement, especially through the pandemic, is accelerating the centralization of those physical records. So an interesting dynamic is happening in the marketplace where you actually have tremendous growth of centralized physical records management. This is the area where most of you are involved. And so when we work with customers at the city, county, state, and federal level, we are seeing that there are more and more physical records coming to centralized management. So the individual departments, as they become more digital, they're pushing those physical records that remain to centralized storage, safekeeping, where they can be retrieved, and more importantly, age out their life cycle according to policies and procedures. And so you're dealing with traditional physical records management challenges, space being a primary consideration, access. So knowing what you have, knowing where it's located, having an automated process for both the search and retrieval of that information, and then having the ability to apply your retention policy to those records, identifying when they're eligible for disposition, which in this case can be either destruction or they could be permanent records for archival preservation, and managing that process. Tim is going to walk us through and show specifically how we manage that within our application. And then finally, as I mentioned, physical records, they're not dying, they are shifting. We have actually seen our strongest growth in our portfolio in our physical records management business. So the need to manage the hybrid records, to manage the life cycle, particularly the retention and disposition of those records as they accumulate in centralized storage, and as government agencies being the custodian of those records and having the tool to manage the full life cycle of that information to to apply your policy, to service your customers and provide access to this information is critical. So with that overview, I'd like to turn it over to Tim, and we're going to see a little bit about the product. And first, we will pause for any questions. All right, Tim, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Excellent. Not hearing any. Quick audio check, visual check. Kurt, if you confirm you can hear and see me.
I can hear and see you, but I have a presenter view. So I'm going to say, yes, I just switched to audience view so we can see the application. So
right,
you are good.
Excellent. Yeah, so thanks, Noel. Thanks, Kurt, for those introductions, those slides. Guys, I'm going to give you kind of a quick flyover here. We'll spend about 30 minutes. We will reserve time, as Noel mentioned, towards the end for some Q&A. But roughly 30 minutes, we'll do the flyover of the Gimel physical application. Appreciate your time, first of all, guys, whether it's good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Appreciate you taking some time out of your busy day. And with that, let's start taking a look at Gimel Physical. Guys, a quick couple technical notes just to make. It is a browser-based, browser-agnostic application. Use any browser you like. We actually, guys, have a 35-year pedigree. Some of you may have known this product as Infolinks in the marketplace. About 3 years ago, Gimel acquired Infolinks, so very strong pedigree behind this product. And some really good news, guys, it is still very actively developed. Kurt kind of referred to this. It is the hottest commodity within Gimel currently, the production of this Gimel physical application. You do have some deployment options, guys. You can deploy it into the Azure Public Cloud, the Azure Government Cloud, or it can also be installed on-prem. Just want to give you the quick tidbit there that the end user experience, guys, is identical. There is no difference whatsoever. Looks, performs, behaves pretty much exactly the same way. For any information security folks or technical people on call with us today, if you do choose the cloud option, please just take note. We are what's known as SOC 2, SOC 2 Type 2 certified. We do that annually. And by some regards, it's kind of the gold standard to ensure that your data in the cloud is safe. So please just take note of that. And when it comes to compliance, guys, you name it, GDPR, CCPA, HIPAA, or any other acronyms that you're familiar with, the Gimel physical application has been through all of that, used across the globe, public and private sectors, and every vertical within the private sectors itself. Now, because of the 35-year pedigree, guys, as you might expect, the application is super feature rich. It's actually pretty rare that we hear about new requirements concerning physical records management that are not already a standard part of the application. And to that end, it does mean the software is off-the-shelf software. But here's the phrase I want you to catch right up front. It is not one size fits all. Rather, guys, via in-house configuration tools, we can basically draw this interface any way that you want. Now, everybody for physical records management has a tab called Boxes. Most of our clients are also tracking at the file folder level, but sometimes the client will say, hey, Tim, we've got a vault full of microfilm. Can we track that? Absolutely. Doesn't really matter. Anything that, at least in theory, you could put a barcode label on can be tracked in the application. Those folders, boxes, and media, they can travel to users, to individual shelves, to locations, and then we'll touch upon it very briefly later, but all of those records are managed by schedules, related citations, legal holds, end-of-life disposition notices, and then some optional modules. We'll just briefly mention here, guys. There's a nice module called Supply Item Requests that allow those of you managing your own warehouse to pass those consumables back and forth between your end users, and then a really nice billing module for those of you allowed to charge either for the storage or the activities you are performing within those warehouses. Now, really quickly, guys, I do want to take you through some basic functionality of the software. We're going to start sort of just chronologically or sequentially, if you would, in terms of data creation. Appreciate overall 2 ways to get data into the software. There is a bulk import capability. We won't take the time today to show you that, but you can actually bulk import data into any of these tabs, either as a one-time effort or on an ongoing basis. If you've got some upstream application that you'd like to feed information in nightly, you could certainly do that. But here on the Boxes tab, you can, of course, and this would be true of all the tabs, you can click on that Create button, assuming you have the right security privileges to do so, and give you at least one example here, guys, of data creation. Notice, first of all, that there's some default values, pretty nice functionality, and probably a great place for me to inject here, guys. Our licensing model with Gimmel Physical is such that we don't penalize you for more users. We actually strongly encourage you, roll this out to the masses within your organization. You're not going to take a hit there from a pricing perspective. The more users, the better. So remember, it's a browser-based application, super easy to roll it out, and nothing has to be installed anywhere. If an end user has a browser, which they all do, right, and you provided a login, they have everything they need to access the software. But under data creation, for those users who would be doing that aspect of the software, default values are employed. The owning organization of this case of the box and the record series, kind of point number 2 on the creation page here, is a parent-child relationship. So Gimmel Physical will house the rules, so to speak, the record schedules, the record series, the file plans, whatever words you guys like to use, the rules. We support both event-based and time-based record series. For our one example here today, I'm going to keep it simple and choose a 1-year time-based record series. I've already got values supplied for the contents of that box stuff within January of 2023. And to that end, I'm going to save what we've done here just to highlight a couple more quick features about data creation. If you're using an offsite vendor, we would actually allow you to give us the barcode that they supply to you. Otherwise, we will auto-generate, as you see in our demo here today. Of a little more interest, though, right, than just the unique creation of that identifier is where I quickly want to draw your attention now, right? So just a moment ago, here's what I put in, creating a box with stuff in it from January of 23. Because I tied it to a 1-year time-based record series, the software said, awesome. Take that most recent record in that box, 1/31/23, copy that into the cutoff date, which is really the date from which the clock starts running. And by the way, if I didn't explicitly say it up front, you can caption these fields anything you want, have as many or as few fields as you want, but then do the math. Take that cutoff date, add the 1 year, and calculate that scheduled disposition date. Now, had I chosen an event-based record series, in that use case, we would have waited for the user to supply the event date or the cutoff date. Then we would have done the math to calculate this. There is a third option, really usually reserved for the records management team, a way for you to say, hey, you know, Gimmel Physical, I appreciate you've got the rules. I've got an exception to the rule. If you check that override box, you can then put in any date you want for that scheduled disposition date. Clearly pretty critical, right, for end-of-life disposition, which we'll touch upon briefly in just a few moments. Scrolling down just a little bit, I do want you to appreciate there's some nice workflow. And again, won't have time today to get into all those details, but some really nice workflow built into the product surrounding either the data creation side of things, the data or record circulation, and then the end-of-life records disposition that allows you to provide meaningful feedback between the person doing the data entry and you as the records manager. And then scrolling down a little further, guys, right, one of the primary reasons you deploy a physical records management solution is to keep track of your stuff. Whatever stuff means for you, boxes, file folders, you name it, you always need to know or want to know where it is, current location. In this case, I'm logged in as Sam Patterson. So it's with Sam Patterson, right? He did the data entry, but we also want to know where it belongs, and that is reflected here by Iron Mountain. Other features that we could talk about in terms of data creation, but let's just keep it moving, guys. So really nice functionality surrounding getting data into the software. And then briefly, we'll just quickly mention, goes without saying pretty much, for those users, you grant the right to create data. They would also have the ability to update, right? If they type something in wrong, they can fix their mistakes. But a couple of really nice features I just want to call out, something called bulk update and search and replace. Guys, again, it's limited by your security profile, but this allows you to change as many records as you want simultaneously. You could change thousands of boxes when the need arises. Same thing with search and replace. Bulk update allows you to change the entire contents of a field. Search and replace allows you to change a string of data within a particular field. Now, once the data is in the software, let's talk about kind of daily functionality number 2. How do you retrieve it? How do you go about searching? Guys, overall, 7 different ways to search for data in Gimmel Physical. It works the same way on all these tabs. We'll just keep ourselves on the boxes tab here to save a couple of minutes. Option 1 is this area at the top of the page. We call it the quick search. It is configurable. You can actually design this any way you want. Very quickly, a couple of quick examples. If I enter no criteria whatsoever, if I simply click on the blue search button, What I'm really saying here is Gimbal Physical, show me everything that I'm allowed to see. Appreciate that security would be set up, that you can construct that in a bunch of ways. In this case, in demo land, I've got 1,320 boxes. Being just a little bit silly here for a moment, but just to illustrate, so you can do this kind of thing, right? You can say, hey, I'm looking for a box. You call me crazy, but the only thing I can remember was the barcode had a 57 in it. So you can certainly do that kind of a search where you just supply those couple of characters. As you might guess, you're not limited to just a single field here. Going across the page here, I'm going to, for example, say, hey, I know now I remember it was something dealing with our Hong Kong business unit. I could have typed out the whole thing, but let's just put in a few characters. One or more fields with or without wildcards, also supporting, guys, all the comparison operators, right? The greater thans, the less thans, the not equal to, between. And in addition, you can actually use a bunch of keywords here, things like yesterday, today, tomorrow, is null, is not null. So a lot of functionality built into option 1 for searching here, known as the quick search. Real quickly, and kind of similar to your default search in Laserfiche, for those of you familiar with that, you can do what I call it the Google search. I could call it the Laserfiche search, right? You simply, for your end users, is who this is primarily intended, they can just put in whatever word or phrase they want, click on the search button, and the software, like Google, like Laserfiche, will search across all of the data elements simultaneously. Gonna quickly, guys, I'm gonna skip over all these other inner ways to search and just briefly mention, for those of you that are IT, computer savvy type individuals, you can build under advanced queries some very significantly complex searches. You pick and choose from all the available database elements, choose from the comparison operators, specify whatever criteria you like. You can apply what's known as Boolean logic, multiple level sorts. Because these queries can take a little bit of time to build, nice little feature here that you can name and save the query for reuse. And when you do that, it can be your own personal use. You can save it into a system-wide library or a library specific to your security profile. If you've been on this page before, guys, as you would expect, the saved queries show up on a drop-down list. You can choose from that list. For those of you really on the technical side, it does show you the underlying SQL. If you're not quite that technical and you're like, oh my goodness, what does that mean? You can simply click on the preview button and it says, here's what it means. 154 records match that search criteria. So some really powerful features surrounding searching. The results of the search, guys, are always displayed on this grid. A couple quick comments about that. This grid, like the quick search, is configurable. Add as many or as few columns as you want. Each of these little blue links, the blue pop-up window that appears is also configurable. So if you want to see additional information about the record series, hover over it. If you want to see more about the owning organization, hover over it. If you want to know more about the box itself, hover over it. A lot of functionality built in here. These grids behave the way you would expect. You can click on a column header the first time it sources ascending, the second time descending. You can print these grids out for a quick HTML ad hoc report. If you want to be a little fancier, you can take the data in these grids and export it out to a CSV file. Now, here's where there's a big differentiator, right? And Noel briefly mentioned this up front, guys. In principle, whether we're talking digital content, electronic records, or physical records, when it comes to records management, in principle, they're very similar, but logistically, a couple of really big differences. One of them being access to information, right? Because if your system is set up well, as an end user, you can get all the information you need right off the screen for an electronic record. Not so with the physical counterpart, right? So we have to have what's known as a request functionality. Again, won't have time to get into all the details here, but just appreciate that as an end user who does their own searching, they can now select one or multiple records. There is request for pickup when you're sending stuff back to a central repository, or request delivery when you're asking for the repository to send something to you. A lot of things can happen on this page. We'll just briefly say, by default, whoever is logged in, we assume they want it for themselves. Every person has a unique ID. Sam Patterson here as a specialized super user, but if you look down through my list, I could choose somebody else off the list here. In fact, if I choose April, let's say that Sam and April work in the same department and Sam is requesting on behalf of April, he can select her off the list. All we really need is that unique identifier. For those of you working with third-party offsite storage vendors like Iron Mountain, we replicate some of the delivery properties here so that the end user can initiate the process. Let me quickly assuage any fears. This does not automatically go to Iron Mountain. It gets put into a holding queue, which you as a records manager, you can monitor that queue, approve, and then send it over to the offsite vendor, and other things that can happen on this page before the request is finalized. Guys, for every single request that happens, lots of logic that gets applied under the hood in the application. You're seeing one of those examples here. This is a legitimate request, but that particular item was either already checked out or someone beat Sam to the request, so we've added them to the wait list. There are limits that you can set, either quantity-based or time-based, and some other logical checks that happen to ensure successful initiation of requests. Now, when the end users initiate the request, how does the records management team know about incoming requests? Very quickly, 3 different options. Application ribbon, click on request. You can click on any of the corresponding links here to see a static snapshot of all unfulfilled requests. There's the one I did just a moment ago. That is option 1. Option 2 is we've got a standard set of reports. I'll quickly bring you to that page, and it is being recorded, so you come back. I'll scroll through it quickly. You can come back, put it at half speed, and look at the list in greater detail. But a lot of stock reports are included in the application. Did want to show you a rendition of one of them, this pick list right here. This is indeed option 2. For those of you managing your own warehouse, you print this thing off, whether it's folders or boxes, carry it through your central file room or your central warehouse as a pulling aid. Really nice feature here, right? If you choose to scan those barcodes, when you do that, you could set the system up to automatically and immediately send an email back to the requester, in this case, Jeff Cook. It's your way to quickly let Jeff know, hey, I'm working on your request right now. This is option 2 for knowing about incoming requests. Option 3, guys, is what I just alluded to. Very typical for our clients to tie automated emails to these 2 actions, request pickup, request delivery, so that when end users do that, emails are automatically sent off to the appropriate records managers. Requesting functionality. Last daily functionality I want to touch upon briefly, guys, is you got to be able to move stuff around. Now, ideally, you would do this with barcode scanners and labels that have been printed and applied. Really hard to kind of demo that over the internet here, so I'm going to use the mouse and the keyboard. The end result is the same. I'm going to take this record right at the top here that's currently checked out, Prabha Gupta. I'm going to select that record. I'm going to click on transfer. And now, similar to requesting, all I've got to do is tell the software where I want to transfer it to. I could type it in. I could barcode scan it in. I could use this universal control, or I can use this convenience list. I'm going to grab Tony off the list. In the end, I just need the unique ID of where this is supposed to go. So when we get done, we get our confirmation here. And then you'll notice immediately the current location is now reflected as Tony Miller. Really quickly, guys, again, specific to physical records management, you can print any kind of barcode labels you want directly out of our software. Actually, our client success team will work with you during implementation, design any size label you want with any information you want whatsoever. Here's a quick picture just as one example, an example of a box label. Have as many different labels as you would like in the software itself. All right, from a daily functionality perspective, that's the type of stuff you typically are doing. Let's cover quickly, guys, a couple of other really nice pieces of functionality. Number 1, for those of you managing your own warehouse, really nice feature known as space management. And what space management allows you to do, guys, in the end, it provides 2 things for you. Number 1, very quickly, it gives you this quick graphical bar chart of either how full or how empty is your warehouse. Just some nice basic information. From a much more practical perspective, though, what it allows you to do is that when you're about to accession or receive in a certain number of boxes, you can simply put that number there. In this case, I've defaulted it to 10. And it's a really nice way, rather than you wandering through your warehouse looking for open slots on shelves, you can simply say, hey, Gimbal Physical, I got 10 boxes I need to shelve somewhere. Where can I put those boxes? Simply click on that go button. It will start working through the shelving schema, looking for open spaces until it finds the 10. You can print this off, carry it around as a shelving aid. One more very quick example here. You'll notice that these 10 spaces I was looking for, almost all of them there are in row 1. Sometimes you've got this kind of situation though, right? There's something special going on in row 1 in your warehouse. And you don't want to put boxes there right now. It could be a water leak, could be a special project. So you can certainly do this kind of thing as well. Hey, Gimbal Physical, avoid row 1, start searching after row 1. Now notice it starts on row 2 until it finds those 10 open spaces. So space management. I want to quickly return back to the reporting page, guys. I want to mention here, really nice feature about reporting. If you don't happen to see the exact report that you want, you can actually create as many custom reports as you want, all by yourself, and embed them directly into the application interface. Now, it does require the use of a companion utility known as Microsoft Report Builder. There's no cost for that. It's a free download. It does require some basic report design skills on your side, but the sky is the limit. With that utility, create as many custom reports as you would like and put them right into the application. I mentioned it earlier, guys. I'm just going to highlight it here quickly as we fast forward almost to the end here. In terms of offsite vendor integration, we've written integrations for really the three major players in that industry. Iron Mountain is the big boy on the block. So for those of you housing boxes at Iron Mountain, really nice long-standing integration with them that in the end, guys, what it allows you to do is directly from the Gimel physical application is to manage all your hard copy, whether it's on-site or off-site with them. Basically, it replaces that IM Connect utility that you are familiar with. Also have written integrations for those private warehouse owners that use O'Neill software. And then finally, for those of you using Access File Bridge, we've got a nice what's called Access Unify. In the end, all three basically do the same thing. They allow you to manage your hard copy directly from our application interface itself. Now, that's all the standard stuff. It's a Laserfiche webinar, so we got to talk about integration with Laserfiche, of course, so let's do that now. And I probably will have to log back in here, so bear with me for just a moment. Probably sat there a little bit long. Yep, let's log back in. So a little slightly different demo here that is integrated with Laserfiche, but just to highlight the points here. Guys, in the end, I'm going to speak technical for just a quick moment here. What we do is we use the CMIS gateway and the utilization of web service calls. And to say it in words before I show you an example is, guys, here's the basic paradigm. It's been our experience having integrated with Laserfiche more than a decade ago, that in your typical implementation model, there's a big population of Laserfiche users and a smaller population of physical records users. And so the paradigm of the integration is this. For those that will be entering data, physical records data, into this interface, you then get to choose a subset of that data that you then replicate within the Laserfiche repository. The end result being, of course, that from the Laserfiche interface, which we'll get to in just a moment, you can then kind of perform your federate, at a minimum, you can perform your federated search, right? So it's no longer just identifying the electronic or digital content, it also has reference to the physical records themselves. Now, to give you just to pull the curtain back a little bit, won't get into all the details here, but the way you can make that happen, and this is all out of the box functionality, guys. You'll see a Laserfiche integration link here. And what this allows you to do is to associate what we know as the Gimel data tabs. So you're seeing a list of all the tabs here. You notice I've already created a link between a tab called box and a Laserfiche template, which those of you familiar with Laserfiche, right? You can go in there, you can design your own templates, you can add fields to the templates. This administrative page here allows you to associate Gimel tabs to Laserfiche templates. We'll just at least start the process here. I could say, well, you know what? Besides just sharing box information, I'd actually also like to share file level information in Gimel Physical and put it into physical file Laserfiche template over there. Now, once you perform the link, and I don't think I've actually got a lot of this set up, and yeah, I haven't created any Laserfiche fields within that particular template, but what you would see here is you could then tie any of the Gimel Physical file fields to the Laserfiche field within the template over there. So with that sort of the backdrop, guys, let's come back to the boxes tab here. Just some very basic information. And what you're going to see here within my sort of Laserfiche demo, if you will, is just a small subset of boxes, right? I've created 12 boxes over time. You can see some of the basic information here. We jump you now as a quick view into Laserfiche repository. Here's, guys, those boxes, right? These all got in here via the method I just described to you. The creation within Gimel Physical, we then push these over into the Laserfiche repository here. We've got to do at least one example, so let's go ahead and create a brand new box. Keeping one eye on the clock, we're doing good here, guys. Just a couple more minutes before I pass it back over to Noel for Q&A. And I think at least one more additional poll question here. All right, so I'm not going to take the time to fill in lots of information, but I'm going to put at least a little bit here. And to keep this maybe a little bit separate from some of the other boxes I've already created, just to distinguish what I'm doing here, guys, within Gimel Physical. Say, hey, I'm creating a box here, and just to make it even easier, I'm going to make sure I bump up high enough. Box 120, human resources, personnel terminations, and some other basic information, full of stuff from August of 2023. From our interface now, what you get to do is say, okay, not only do I want this data to be housed in Gimel Physical, I want this to be pushed over into one of the templates within the Laserfish repository. So I can choose that template there, click on one of the save options here. Same stuff you saw earlier, but what's happening now is in addition to just saving this record within the Gimel repository, we're also pushing it over into Laserfish. So if we come back now to the Laserfish repository here, let's refresh our view here. You're now going to see that brand new box that I just created. Now it's just a Laserfish record. It's like all the other Laserfish records, right? You can click on it to get the deeper view of the metadata involved with that record itself. And then to give you at least one quick search example here, I did kind of set this up ahead of time, right? I've got a repository here for a template for boxes, another one for files. On the files, I've got resumes and specific, but I can do this kind of thing. I might say, hey, within Laserfish, I'm looking for Jones information, right? Make up the example as you want to, but this is kind of the key aspect I wanted you guys to take away from the integration, is that when you do your search now, not only are you identifying digital content that was born digital within Laserfish, but you also now have reference, right, to information that was created in Gimel Physical, and based upon this description field, it doesn't quite show here, but eventually it says Barney Jones there. Now, just one more quick comment, Nicole, before I Noel, before I kick it back over to you, is that at a minimum, guys, this is what ties the systems together, but I don't want you to miss out on. You, in conjunction with your Laserfish reseller, you have the option of adding a lot more whiz bang to this if you want to. You can work with them to create those custom buttons, which allow you to reach back into Gimel Physical to do features like the request. A very common scenario is this, okay? As a Laserfish end user, I've done my federated search. I can see these guys right now, but I want to actually get that box in my hands. You can have that customized button put into your Laserfish interface to jump you back into Gimel Physical to start that requesting process. So, guys, with that, apologies. I know that was super fast, just trying to squeeze a lot of information in really quickly. With that, Noel, I want to kick it back over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. That was great. So we can all go back on camera now and we will do Q&A. There were quite a few questions that came in, so we're just going to go dive right in. So Kurt, Tim, if any of these are questions you can answer, please feel free to chime in. But the first one, have you seen improvements with management of trigger event use for physical storage?
Tim and I are both opening our mouths, so I'll give a quick answer and let Tim elaborate. So the challenge with trigger events as opposed to time-based events is enforcing them. So for example, if you put employment contracts into a file, it goes into a box, and then it's being triggered by the end of that contract date. How do you know when the contract expires? And then how do you know for that all contracts in that file or box have expired? So from a practical standpoint, most schedules try and translate to the longest practical period to eliminate event triggers because they're very hard to enforce.
As a quick add-on, guys, yeah, and way in the weeds, apologies there, but in the Gimel Physical application, the answer is yes. Have we seen increased compliance with that? Because we make it easy to do. Overall, 2 ways to indicate the triggering event has happened. You can actually feed that information in from some other line of business application via API calls, but kind of old-fashioned, what you can also do in Gimel Physical is query up the related records. So Tim Butler termination, when Tim gets fired or leaves the company, you can query by Tim Butler to bring up all the associated records. And then using that bulk update feature that I briefly mentioned, you put the triggering event date in one time in one place, it automatically percolates to all the affected records so we can calculate the correct disposition date.
Excellent. So next question, and I feel like we touched on this a little bit, but maybe it's relevant to bring back up. So does Gimel or Laserfish offer barcode labels for inventory being housed on a company's premises for tracking in the Gimel physical storage tracking tool?
Jim, I'll go straight to you.
Okay, yeah. So the quick answer is no. We are a software company. We don't provide barcode labels. We don't provide boxes. But as you might guess, Kurt and I have both been in this business since last century. We can certainly point you in the right direction for where to get those consumable supplies. Then, of course, if you're working with an offsite vendor, they supply those barcode labels to you. Once you have the stock, though, as I quickly flew through in the demo there, you can print onto stock that you already have for those purposes.
And for clarity, I'll add to that the system is based on barcode tracking and unique identification of the items. So as Tim said, while we don't provide the consumables, the actual label stock and so forth, we actually do provide the ability to generate barcodes. We assign unique barcode IDs to all the items, and that is part of the fundamental tracking. So it is part of the capability. We just don't do the actual consumables.
What about RFID labels?
So RFID is interesting. It's another form of unique identification. So it takes the place of barcode labels. Again, I don't know how deep I got into my ice cream analogy, but we've seen every type of permutation. And so while RFID works in certain use cases, it is a higher degree of, I think, technical engineering, specialized hardware and so forth. So we support it, absolutely, but it is not as commonly used as regular barcode labels.
Perfect. So another question. When records meet the retention period and can be destroyed, does the program delete the records and create a report?
Yeah, real quickly there, guys, to make it as concise as possible, right? Again, big difference between digital content and physical records, right? With digital content, in the end, you simply push a button, right, somewhere on your keyboard, or you click your mouse and the records are deleted, or you've got a workflow that does it automatically. Physical records, not so, right? Unless you've got a button that's connected to a detonator in a warehouse somewhere, pushing a button is not going to destroy physical records. There's a whole logistical process you have to go through. Didn't have time in this demo, but some really nice, some workflow support, some associated reports that you can print and use to get through that process to pull the right boxes off the shelves, stage them, double check you pulled the right boxes, and then actually disposition them, delete them, as you've said in your question, when that shredding truck shows up. Be aware that we do keep deleted records in the system by default. They're hidden from most end users, but they are still there for reference purposes. You can choose to then additionally expunge that data should you so desire.
And Tim, to add to that, because I think that's a real important point. For a long time, there has been what I'll call kind of a notion of let's manage physical and electronic in one system because the fact that they're different formats does not mean that they're unique as records. At the same time, from a practical standpoint, the way that the records operation is performed is different for physical and electronic. And the disposition is a good example. So as you point out, in an electronic system, it is a deletion process. So it is a technical process of essentially hitting a button. For physical records, it is more involved because you have to run the report, you get approval, then you have to actually find the records, you have to pull them, you have to send them to a destruction service. They often provide a certificate of destruction, and then you may want to be able to prove that those records did exist and they were destroyed according to your policy in the normal course of business. So the actual operational steps to perform the disposition are different for physical and electronic records. So that's why we make sure that you're using the same file plan, the same retention schedule in both systems, but the actual operation of disposing is just logistically different.
So we have another question here. How would you scan into, how would you scan into Laserfiche first and then scan into Gimel? Or would there be some sort of push of documentation or data from one system to another?
Kurt, you want me to take that one?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I think the gist of that question, I think if I'm hearing it correctly, Now, let me just explain a little bit. The paradigm of the integration, guys, as I tried to explain in the demo, is that the records, the physical record metadata that is created in Gimel Physical is pushed over into Laserfiche. So in that sense, Laserfiche becomes the master repository for seeing all digital and physical assets. Now, if behind that question is that, hey, I'm image scanning, I've got PDFs, I want those in both Laserfiche and possibly either in Gimel Physical or with reference to them in Gimel Physical. Two answers there. Number one, by default, that's not what we do. That's not the paradigm. We want all the digital content to reside within Laserfiche. However, there are use cases, and this was where your Laserfiche reseller would come in, that you can take digital content housed within within Laserfiche and make that available from the Gimel Physical interface. So that is a possibility, but it is not the default integration the way that it works. In addition to that, guys, I'll quickly mention kind of beyond or beneath the scope, I guess I'll say, of Laserfiche. If you've got some critical digital content, finalized records, they're no longer falling under document management purview, but they're end-of-life convenience copies of digital content, you can house those natively in Gimel Physical for quick reference for convenience purposes. So those end users, similar to the way they do in Laserfiche, right from the Gimel Physical interface, they can see a PDF of some basic information related and corresponding to a box or a folder.
Perfect. We are getting very close to the end of this session. So we'll do one more question. We'll close it out. Everyone else that has asked questions, because there's a flood of them, we'll follow up one-on-one. So thank you so much for asking those questions. We do want to respond to them, but we are quickly running out of time. So last question before we quickly close is, what are the initial steps to properly set up a solution with my company? Do I need to partner with my IT team or somebody else?
So good question, because especially in government, what we find is identifying the need is step one. And then developing the business case and getting internal approval, budgets, and so forth is a whole separate process. And we certainly assist in doing that and understand what it takes to get this through the internal process. So we are on many state cooperative agreements, including the Texas DIR contract, which all states can use, NASPO, GSA, and so forth. But beyond that, just the process of how do I build the case internally, so we can assist in doing that, and certainly understand that it's part of every process. Just because you have a need for a new records management program, there are other steps involved, we understand, in how you gain the budget and support internally to make that happen.
Excellent. Thank you. So we do still have questions coming in. One thing I will quickly repeat is that we did record today's session, so it will be available on demand. The link that you used to access this session today is the same link you'll use to access the recording. So feel free to come back in and see the session if you had any issues with audio or things like that, or if you got interrupted. Please feel free to just click on this link again. I think it takes a little bit of time, so it might be an hour or so. Maybe check back later today to view the recording, but it will be available. You will also get an email from On24 reminding you or letting you know that the recording is available. So, and before we go, because there are a lot of questions still. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Kurt. Were you going to say something?
Oh, no, sorry. I was just going to make an offer, because I do see there are a lot of questions. And for anyone who is specifically looking for a new system and would like a complete demonstration specific to their use case and their needs, Noel's going to share the information, but we're happy to do that and walk you through the product and meet with you individually as well.
Yeah, thank you. So before we go, so I did want to just leave this up for everyone here. So if you wanted to learn more about the integration with Gimel and Laserfiche, you can visit the Gimel site in our marketplace. So you can use that QR code or go to that URL or you can just go into the Laserfiche marketplace and search for Gimel. It'll pop up so you can learn a little more about the integration there. And then again, like Kurt said, there are a lot of questions coming in. So we thought we'd just ask once more if anyone wants to speak directly with Gimel. Let us know if you want to speak directly with Laserfiche, combination of the two, or you're good. Thanks for the information. Feel free to select any one of those options on the screen. I'll leave that up for a little bit. All of those options are clickable. It is an interactive window, so you can click on those items. And with that, yeah, we also do have, again, we have all of the resources within one of the windows on your On24. So feel free to utilize those resources. There are newsletters from both Laserfiche and Gimel that you can sign up for, and those links are there. You also have mine, Tim, and Kurt's LinkedIn profiles linked within the bio section on the On24 where you see us. So with that, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. It was a great session. Thank you for all of the brilliant questions. Again, we will follow up one-on-one, and we hope to see you again soon. Thank you so much, Tim and Kurt, for joining us.
Our pleasure.
Today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.